Yes, we're ready.
Good morning. At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for Thursday, October 19. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Clickham?
Here.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
And Chairman Eilert?
Here. All are present. We do have a quorum. Would you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would ask that those who are in attendance this morning, if you have a noise-making device, if you would please turn it to silent mode or off so as not to interfere with electronic communications. We have a couple of presentations to make this morning. We'll do so at this time. I'm going to ask Sarah Van Landijk to join me at the podium. Sarah is Executive Director of the Arts Council of Johnson County, and we have a proclamation prepared proclaiming October as National Arts and Humanities Month. And this is done in recognition of the Arts and Humanity Council's activities, not only in Johnson County and the metro area, but across the country, as it is a national recognition identified by the White House as well as Congress for the past 2 years. So I'll ask Sarah to tell us a little bit about the activities of the Arts Council, but on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I do declare October 2017 as National Arts and Humanities Month. And I'll present this to you in appreciation of the good work that the Arts Council of Johnson County does. Thank you.
Well, I promise to be brief. Thank you, Chairman Eilert, and thank you, Commissioners. The arts are an integral part of Johnson County's identity. It's embedded in our quality of life, in our economic prosperity, and our workforce development. Johnson County residents consistently rank in the top 4% nationally for arts participation. Our community, our arts community are good business citizens with a $22 million direct economic impact for our county and a little over $2 million in state and local government revenue. And through arts education programs in Olathe and Spring Hill, DeSoto, Blue Valley, and Shawnee Mission School Districts, our students are uniquely prepared to join the creative and innovative workforce that companies are so hungry for. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for this very kind recognition. And thank you to all the arts and cultural organizations, artists, and arts educators whose contributions make Johnson County a community of choice.
Well, I want to recognize our Arts Council for all of the activities that they promote throughout Johnson County and the metro area, but one of the significant activities, which is always a pleasure to observe or be a part of, is the Shooting Stars, which I think once a year, high school students across the county are recognized for their activities and spatial talents that they represent. And I want to say there's literally hundreds of high school students who are recognized in that effort, and it is an exciting program not only for the students and their parents, but also well-deserved recognition. So thank you very much for all the work you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to ask Paul Welcome, who's director of is our county appraiser and director of the office. And Paul, you have someone else with you this morning?
Yes, Michelle Sipes.
All right, Michelle, why don't you come on up? This is a special recognition by an international organization of appraisers, not only across the U.S., but also around the globe. Being the county appraiser can be a challenging job sometimes, and we all recognize that. But even though we might have some disagreements sometimes with decisions, Mr. Welcome and his office have received this special recognition. They're only the second county in the United States who's received this kind of recognition for best practices in the administration and the application of the statutes that they operate under. I think there was a county in Florida who received a certification, their second certification last year, and Johnson County is the second county to receive that second certification. So it is a significant recognition of the work that you and your staff do in the appraiser's office, and congratulations. Present this to you in recognition of you and your staff. And Michelle, I understand you have some comments to make? Just come up.
So I wrote the assessment, the Excellence in Assessment Administration for 2017, and it was an incredible learning experience and journey, and it was an honor to write. And I want to thank everyone in our office, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Paul, Michelle, the rest of your staff. And I know, Paul, that you have been very, very active in the national and international organization, and your leadership there has been well recognized also. So thank you very much. Michelle, thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you stand in between us?
Right.
And,
A rose between two. Oh, man.
I think it's appropriate to note at this time that at 1 p.m., for anyone who's interested, we have a committee of the whole, and we will receive information from Mr. Welcome as to the operation of the office, the state statutes that his office has to follow in making appraisals, and what that process is. So anybody who's interested in that subject is welcome to come back at 1 p.m. in this room, and we'll all receive that information. That concludes our presentations. We'll turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's anyone present who would like to address the commission on an item which does not later appear on the agenda, welcome to the podium, the microphone, state your name and address. Limit your comments to 5 minutes, and we'll be glad to receive that information.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Carroll. My address is 15555 South Moonlight Road, Olathe. I'm here to speak against the construction of Lineage Logistics, and in doing so, I need to tell you a little about myself, my husband, and our home. We purchased our land 18 years ago next month. We wanted to build a place where my husband could keep his old cars he collects and to have room to work on them. Enough ground that I can dig in the dirt as much as I want to and mow all day if I wanted. But we built our home ourselves. I pulled the wire, helped screw down the 2x6s that the walls are nailed to, and with the guidance from my husband, many other things I would have considered impossible before we began this and other of the many projects we have done throughout our years together. But that's the way we have lived our lives, a lot of hard work. But it has been very rewarding. It has never been pride of possession, but always a pride of accomplishment. But now, 18 years later, we have reached the age of almost 85 and 77, and we are enjoying the things we have worked so hard to accomplish. And thinking less and less of what next. This is where we want to spend our time until the next phase of our lives. But because the BOCC has given Lineage Logistics enough deviations that it no longer resembles a PEC 3 building code for this area, they have to allow the construction. I have had an artist rendering done of the views we will have of this if it is allowed to go forward. Along with the annoying sounds, the reefer trucks, diesel fumes, and the constant fear of living next to anhydrous ammonia. Commissioner Brown, you represent the 6th District, yet you have a key note in pursuing this project. But I wonder if you would be so eager if it was a place that you're behind your house. I think not. That you reserve for others. Chairman Eilert, you have voted for this building to be next to our home, so my husband, myself, and all of our neighbors will be forced to live with this 85-foot tall building in our neighborhood, along with the dangers of anhydrous ammonia, with the constant sounds of trucks running and trailers being moved around, with that noise of beep, 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 along with the lingering smell of diesel fumes. But I'm wondering how your family, your neighbors would feel if you had voted yes for it to be in your neighborhood. So you want no longer have the peace and quiet that you now have, only noise, fumes, and yes, even fear. So I'll ask the question to any one of the commissioners here today, if it were going to be placed next to your home, if your vote would still be yes. Then we will all know just how far you are willing to go to pursue this project at others' expense. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else.
Jana Walker, 25088 West 150th Terrace, Olathe, Kansas. I am here to read Willie Dove. He is our Kansas State Representative for the 38th District. The Board of County Commissioners, I have been contacted by concerned citizens for responsible government opposing the Lineage Logistics facility. There are concerned citizens, businesses, landowners, and approximately 1,800 homes that have safety concerns of anhydrous ammonia emplacement facility, including the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center. As I understand it, the decision was unanimous from the BOCC to approve the project with multiple deviations from the PEC 3 zoning requirements. While researching another project, I located information that supported my concerns. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board's final report on ammonia explosion in West Texas, land use and zoning should be used to separate population from hazardous materials. Economic development is vital to the infrastructure of the Kansas economy, but not to the safety of the citizens. I have followed this carefully with data that supports a decision to place this facility in an area where, when, not if, a leak happens, because it will happen, because of the corrosive nature of anhydrous ammonia. Putting this type of plant in a highly populated area could endanger the lives of innocent victims. The data supporting the dangers of anhydrous ammonia is a subject that should not be taken lightly. The following information was from the CDC and prevention, 24/7, saving lives, protecting people. Anhydrous ammonia, a colorless gas with pungent, suffocating fumes, is used as an industrial refrigerant. When handled improperly, anhydrous ammonia can be immediately dangerous to life or health. As liquid anhydrous ammonia is released from its container into the air, it expands rapidly, forming a large cloud that acts like a heavier than air gas for a period of time. Because the vapors hug the ground initially, the chances for humans to be exposed are greater than with other gases. Symptoms of anhydrous ammonia exposure include eye, nose, throat irritation, breathing difficulty, wheezing, chest pain, pulmonary edema, pink frothy sputum, burns, blisters, and frostbite. Another possible exposure to anhydrous ammonia results from the theft or ammonia by cookers of methamphetamines. Now, this is my own. You have to remember, this is next to the detention center. Of the 40,349 events reported to the Hazardous Substance Emergency Surveillance System from January 1st, 2000 to June 30, 2004, a total of 1,791 were associated with illicit meth production. Of these 179 events, at least 164 were known to have been caused by anhydrous ammonia, theft, for the production of methamphetamines. These 164 events resulted in 85 injured persons, mostly members of the general public and police officers. The most frequent injuries were respiratory distress, eye irritation. However, these numbers are not completely representative of the number of incidents or injuries, since only 16 states contributed data to the HSEES during that period of time, and reporting is not mandatory for all events. In addition, law enforcement officials might not report events that could jeopardize criminal investigations. With the information supplied by the source, CDC, would you reconsider your votes and move this proposed facility to a location where it will not endanger the lives of our neighbors? In service, Willie Dove, our Kansas State Representative, 38th District. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Becky Hodson. My address is 10921 South Emerald Street in Olathe. I'm reading a letter from Deanne Mitchell. Deanne Mitchell is running for the at-large position for the City Council of Olathe. To the Board of Commissioners, I urge the Board of County Commissioners to reconsider the approval of the Lineage Logistics plant at New Century Airport. As a resident of South Olathe and a candidate for this Olathe City Council at large, I have great concerns about the approval process and lack of public disclosure. Public safety is my priority. And while the location of the plant will not be within the Olathe city limits, it will be less than a mile from a large Olathe residential neighborhood, a golf course, as well as very near Clearwater Creek Elementary School, Oregon Trail Middle School, Olathe West High School. The plant will also be near Lake Olathe Park, Cedar Lake Park, and Cedar Creek Trail, which are scheduled for improvements and will be the most significant park and recreation investments in the Kansas City metro area in recent years. The lack of public notification prior to the plant approval is very troubling. Residents within the 1.5-mile evacuation zone should have been notified, with community forums provided to allow for public input. With both the City of Gardner and the City of Olathe bordering the proposed plant, discussions with the two cities should have been required steps. Consultations with the Olathe Fire Department, which is the nearest ISO Class 1 department, and the Olathe Medical Center as the nearest hospital with a critical care unit should have been taken place prior to the approval. These entities would need advanced knowledge to prepare an environmental risk assessment in the event of a toxic leakage. I understand there are several cold storage plants currently in Olathe. These plants are operated by companies that, unlike Lineage Logistics, have not recently been fined by OSHA for ammonia release and related ammonia handling violations. In addition, none of these plants have a large number of citizens within that 1.5-mile evacuation zone. For the safety of my home community, please reevaluate the Lineage Logistics proposal. Sincerely, Deanne Mitchell, Olathe, Kansas.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jason Daniels. My address is 12533 South Cottonwood Drive in Olathe. As a candidate for the Olathe City Council, Ward 4, I have been speaking with my neighbors to understand the needs and concerns facing our community. One such concern that was recently brought to my attention is the Lineage Logistics Warehouse project in New Century. According to the Concerned Citizens for Responsible Government, this refrigerated warehouse would employ the use of anhydrous ammonia, a highly toxic and volatile chemical. Specific concerns with the project lie in the proximity of the warehouse to populated areas and the spotty safety record of Lineage Logistics and their other facilities. Additionally, according to cc4rg.com, it appears the approval of this project by the Board of County Commissioners circumvented standard approval processes, deviated from zoning ordinances, and excluded due notification of the residents of New Century. One of the cornerstones of my campaign for City Council is to provide more transparency into the workings of our local government and decisions made by our representatives. Based on the information that I've been provided, this project flies in the face of public opinion, and I respectfully urge the Board of County Commissioners to halt progress on the project pending public forums by Lineage Logistics to address location and safety concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brianna Cooper. I live on 25088 West 150th Terrace, and I will be reading a letter from Bill Sutton, the representative of the 43rd District. To the Board of County Commissioners, for the past month, the proposed...
Excuse me, would you put the mic closer to your mouth? Thank you.
There you go. To the Board of County Commissioners, for the past month, the proposed cold storage facility has been dominating my inbox. Every other call I receive touches on this subject in one way or another. The concerns can be organized into two lines of thought. One group of constituents is very concerned about the dangers of anhydrous ammonia. A simple Google search will provide ample fuel for such concerns, particularly because it's planned to be located directly across the street from a residential neighborhood. The second group of constituents is concerned about the property values. What will a massive industrial facility do to property values and the overall appearance of the northwest section of Gardner? The concern that everyone shares, however, is the way in which this situation came about. There was no discussion with the city of Gardner. I'm told there was no discussion with the city of Olathe. There was certainly no discussion of the proposal with the people living nearby. This proposal seems to have appeared fully formed and be decided by the county commissioners before anyone was even made aware of its existence. I'm certain that it was never the intention of the county commissioners, but can you see what that looks like to a constituent? By all appearances, the county commission is taking a project that they wouldn't want in their backyard and just sticking it in New Century, granting every variance ever asked for. None of you live here, so what do you care? If it's dangerous or ugly or dominates the horizon, so what? You control New Century. Gardner has no say, even though it's sitting right on the city limit sign. Maybe a landfill could go there. Why not? You control it and you don't live near it. Again, I fully believe that was never the commission's intent, but that's what the people are feeling. My constituents, your constituents, so much of this could have been avoided with an open and honest communication, and that's what I propose. Rescind the vote, allow public input, and hold the vote in the light of day. Most sincerely, Representative Bill Sutton, 43rd District, Kansas.
Thank you.
My name is William Joyce, or Bill Joyce, and I live at 4806 Belinda Court, Westwood, Kansas. And subject is the unlawful appraisal value of property from 1995 to present day, and for 22 years, the county appraiser department cannot tell that a house is livable but not saleable condition. During 1989, the appraised value was reduced from $112,600 to $66,500 with 2 appeal hearings. The house has good curb appearance but cheap construction throughout. The reduction was due to about 1,200 square foot of sagging roof. This was probably due to a second layer of shingles on top of a 2x4 rafters over a 32-foot wide roof and a 10-inch snowfall around January 1980. There are still foundation problems of rotted floor joists and a stained foundation wall caused by rainwater from a flat front door stoop. There is a variety of windows, probably from World War II Quonset huts or cheap salvage yard, and warp panels on the garage door. In parentheses, I was in the service during the Korean War era and was familiar with the living quarters of that area, unquote. The two small windows have aluminum framing for the past 22 years, 1995 to 2017. I have applied for all appeals available with results mostly ignored by the county appraiser. During the September 1977 Plaza flood, the basement of this house was totally inundated with water when three of 8 other neighborhood basements had several feet of water. About a year later, we bought the 3-bedroom house with about 1,400 square foot for about $44,000 and sold the 2-bedroom house with 900 square foot for about $48,000. It was discovered that the flood caused termite damage from the front of the house to the back of along the garage and kitchen area and the front stoop area. This was corrected at the time of purchase. When this county appraiser's department, after over 20 years, cannot tell a house that was constructed poorly and cheaply, and the home buyer should not be penalized for buying a low-priced house. This taxpayer found that appeals to this board were useless in the past. However, since 3 commissioners have complained about the Johnson County appraiser value of property in their area, this taxpayer decided to try again. To support the county's value, 66 pictures of the project in 2010 by Matthew Berkeley and 44 pictures in 2015 by Tracy Weaver were presented to this taxpayer by a county representative.
Mr. Joyce, you're coming to the end of the 5-minute period. If you could conclude.
It's all written here.
All right. Thank you very much. Someone else to speak.
My name is Don Myers, and I live at 1608 South Lake Stone Court, Olathe, Kansas. And I want to express my strong opposition to the board's decision to allow the building of the Lineage Logistics Facility at the Gardner location. My wife spoke last week before the board rather passionately about her very real concerns to us, our children, grandchildren, and neighbors. I'm in full agreement with her comments and with the many others who have spoken before you about the many hazards associated with this type of facility that uses large quantities of a hazardous compound, anhydrous ammonia. Rather than repeat what has already been said, I'd like to approach the problem from a different direction. I manage a small manufacturing company in Johnson County and have for almost 30 years. I'm not ashamed to admit that on occasion I made a bad decision, almost always due to information that initially was incomplete, misleading, or just plain wrong. When new, better, and correct information became available, I would change my decision for the benefit of the company and the employees. It appears that we have a similar situation here. The board's decision, I believe, was based on incomplete or misleading information at best. The last few weeks, a wealth of factual information has brought forward the real dangers of such a facility in our neighborhood. And in light of this, a reconsideration or rescinding of approval is warranted. Almost everyone in the area, which is a substantial number of people, are very much opposed to this facility. We ask that the board reverses its position because it's simply the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name is John Resman. Address is 434 North Persimmon Drive. I'm also the representative for the 121st District, and I've been asked today to read a letter from Alan K. Martinson, Jr., who is a candidate for the Olathe City Council, and it's in reference to the Lineage Logistic Project at New Century Airport. I am writing to express my significant concerns about the county's approval for Lineage Logistics Cold Storage Project at New Century. I am an Army veteran, former police officer, and I'm a long-time loss prevention safety professional. I ran for city council and have spoken to citizens throughout Olathe. My entire adult life has been spent in the service of protecting people. I have experience in the realm of hazardous materials. I am not by any stretch an expert in the field, but I do know anhydrous ammonia is not to be taken lightly. When proposing potentially dangerous plants such as Lineage Logistics, part of the planning phase is to identify worst-case scenarios. When you figure how to mitigate situations and develop plans to reduce losses, when you consider the inherent volatility of anhydrous ammonia, I deeply troubled that the city of Olathe was not adequately consulted and the citizens surrounding the affected area were not given due notification, and that the approval process occurred in the shroud of secrecy. As far as I am aware, neither the city of Olathe nor the city of Gardner were consulted on the project. Granted, it is a county project, but the citizens of both cities are within 1.5 miles of the evacuation zone. This plant, if something were to fail, could result in significant loss of life. The nearby county jail would not be able to be evacuated, risking the lives of hundreds of prisoners. The neighboring communities, families, and children would all be at risk. The nearby schools would be at risk. The response time for the nearest hazmat response team would be 10 to 15 minutes at best. Toxic gas on a windy day could travel quickly. The county should be focusing on how to protect people, not expose them to risks such as this. Placing this plant in such a populated area without adequate protections is an extreme gamble to begin with. Add to the fact that Lineage Logistics as a company has been deemed as a bad actor by the EPA and has been found to have OSHA violations. And you all know to gamble against the house, more times than not the house wins. I am therefore urging that you please reconsider the approval of Lineage Logistics plant. The approval should be rescinded pending a full public hearing on the project so that all factors can be considered, not only by the county, but the communities of Olathe and Gardner that would be impacted by this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, there being no one else to be heard, the public comment portion of the agenda is concluded. I would simply just make this comment. If there's any candidate for local office or any state representative or state senator who has concerns about the process that was used in arriving at this decision, I would invite them, I would encourage them to contact the county manager's office or my office. We'll be glad to share the information, the public hearings that were held, and the consideration that was given to this particular project. So if there's interest, if there's real interest in this project, again, I would encourage those individuals to contact the county. We'll be glad to share the information. It's already out there, available to the public. So appreciate those comments. Thank you. There are no notes for the record. We'll move to the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda?
Item number 1, consider approving the September 28, 2017 business session minutes. And item number 2, consider authorizing and submitting the Johnson County Department of Corrections State FY 2018 carryover reimbursement budget to the Kansas Department of Corrections as recommended by the Community Corrections Advisory Board in the amount of $240,073.88.
Is there a commissioner who has any question about the proposed consent agenda? Is there anyone present who would like to have an item considered separately? There being no one to be heard is before the commission. Mr. Osterhaus.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Clickham?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving to the action agenda, item number 3.
Resolution number WD 17-029. Conduct a public hearing and consider authorizing funds to construct the Leawood Contract 4 Site 7 and 8 sanitary sewer replacement and relocation for Johnson County wastewater in an amount not to exceed $219,000.
Ms. McCarrick. This is a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Susan.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Susan Pekarik with Wastewater. This is a funding request for construction improvements for 2 sites in the city of Leawood. These were sites that were identified as critical sites where we needed to go in and improve the site, the 2 sites. The first site, Site 7, is located in the vicinity west of Lee Boulevard in the vicinity of 93rd Street, which is shown on the map here on your screen. The area that we'll be working on is shown inside this red box here. There's Lee Boulevard on the east side. We can't service, this is a 6-inch line. Our minimum size and our standards now is an 8-inch line, but we also can't service this. It's got 2 45-degree bends here in that line with no manholes. So we need to go in there and straighten that line out and increase the size of the line. The second site, site number 8, is located on the east side of Lee Boulevard and in the vicinity or just north of 85th Terrace. We have a partially collapsed line in this area, and again, we can't service it because we have patios and decks that have been constructed over the tops of these lines. So we're going to go in and clean up. Looks a little bit like spaghetti now. We're going to go in and clean that up and straighten it out so that we'll be able to operate and maintain those lines. Funding request is for $219,000. That includes construction and engineering construction phase services. The contract award is the next item on the agenda. This was included in our capital improvement program and the financial model that we presented to the board earlier this year. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions of the staff? Mr. Ashcraft.
Process question, Mr. Chairman. My questions primarily are focused on the next agenda item. Should I just wait? They are related, but...
Please, yeah.
You want me to wait till next item?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there anyone present who would like to address the commission on this item? There's no one to be heard. The public hearing is closed. A motion would be in order. Mr. Osterhaus.
I move the board approve resolution number WD 17-029, authorizing funds for the construction of Leawood Contract 4, Site 7 and 8, sanitary sewer replacement and reallocation in an amount not to exceed $219,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the resolution number WD 17-029 as presented. Any further questions or discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Clickham?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Item number 4.
Invitation for bid number 2017-051. Consider authorizing a contract with Whiteman, Inc. to construct the Leawood Contract 4 Site 7 and 8 sanitary sewer replacement and relocation project in an amount not to exceed $146,817.
Ms. McCarrick.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Susan Pekarik with Wastewater again. This request is for the contract award to construct the item that we just discussed, the 2 sites in Leawood. Bids for this project were open on August 18th. There were 4 bids received. The low bidder is Whiteman Incorporated, and in the amount of $146,817. Last week, there was a question about one of the bidders. We haven't seen the name before. She Digs It. It is a local firm. They haven't bid with us before. They're out of Blue Springs. So the funding, again, was approved under the previous agenda item. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McCarrick, a couple of questions, if you would, please. There seems to be quite a spread in terms of responses. Any observations regarding that, good or bad?
Not necessarily. These would just be from experience, my personal experience. I will say that George Butler Associates, who is the consultant for us here, they reviewed the bid with Weideman, and Weideman's very comfortable with their bid. As I described in the previous bid item, a little bit of the challenges of these projects. The maps are still up on the screen here. These are in backs of yards. It's very tight construction, and every contractor has to assess their risk and their backlog. And there was nothing that really was jumped out and said, well, here's a difference, why there's a spread there.
Okay. And as a general rule, you don't have any concerns about process integrity because we do share these amounts, these bid amounts, when we award.
Absolutely. We also have a mandatory pre-bid conference so that every contractor hears the same thing as we're presenting the project before the bid.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Schaefer?
I'll make a motion.
Let me ask for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission on this item? There's no one to be heard. Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Board of County Commissioners authorize a contract with Weideman.
Microphone, please.
Oh, there we go. Put that down. I move that the Board of County Commissioners authorize a contract with Weideman, Inc. to construct the Leawood Contract 4 Site 7 and 8 sanitary sewer replacement and relocation project in an amount not to exceed $146,817 per invitation to bid number 2017-051.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution awarding the contract as noted. Any further questions or discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Aye. Commissioner Clickham?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item number 5, application number NWPP/FP3346. Consider a request from Jim Coyle, DAC Ventures LLC, applicant, and Barry Prim, landowner, for preliminary and final plat approval for 3 residential lots on approximately 50 acres on property zoned RUR Rural District.
Ms. Ayal.
Good morning, Commissioners. The subject property is located just east, it's on the north side of 127th Street, just east of the Moonlight intersection. This is a replat of Lot 4 of Cedar Ranch subdivision, which was approved earlier this year in July. This is a preliminary and final plat. This is a preliminary and final plat of the 50-acre lot, which was Lot 4, into 3 residential lots. The layout without construction of an internal or local or collector street to provide access to the lots requires a waiver to allow direct access to the arterial. The layout includes a shared access for lots 5 and 6 to 127th Street and a direct access at the existing driveway for Lot 7. This went to the Northwest Consolidated Zoning Board on September 18th, and after discussion, the Zoning Board unanimously recommended approval with stipulations. Reasons given were much the same as the reasons given for the first Cedar Ranch plat and the Canthak plat at 127th and Gardner Road. So for approval of the plat, the Zoning Board recommends the following reasons. The proposed preliminary and final plat will comply with the county's regulations subject to approval of a waiver, subject to compliance with the recommended stipulations, and if the waiver is approved, the proposed preliminary and final plat is consistent with the requirements for the RUR district. The sizes of the proposed lots are in keeping with the comp plan and are compatible with the adjacent land uses and the character of the area. The City of Olathe is not interested in annexing the area and allowing leapfrog development by extending sanitary sewers through the park property to the east, and that the stipulations are reasonable. For approval of the waiver, They offer these reasons, that CARNIP is more applicable in some areas than it is in others, and each application should be reviewed for its own merits. 127th Street to the west of Moonlight is a gravel road, and there are no plans to chip and seal the surface. One shared driveway serving two 15-acre-sized lots and one driveway serving a 20-acre lot along a CARNIP road will not cause any issues and is more in line with the character of the neighborhood than the construction of a street. The property is flat, and there is adequate site distance and capacity on 127th Street for the two additional driveways. The driveways are located far enough from the intersection and are spaced far enough apart, not unlike the distances between streets serving more homes. This is not an unreasonable request. The driveways are compatible with future growth, and in these locations could serve future development. Staff again recommends denial of the second plat for the same reasons given for the first plat. Those are listed in your summary. This 3-lot plat was presented with the remand of the first plat. It's a little unusual that the property is incrementally divided twice in the same year. And I'd like to emphasize, it's not just about the shape of the lots or strictly about access. It's more about how the county wants to develop, as envisioned in the comp plan, where and when, and the lasting impact this type of piano key development has. Development without minimum infrastructure investment allows premature conversion of agricultural land into residential estate-type lots. As you are keenly aware, there are often conflicts between residential and agricultural uses. This piano key pattern of development may surround and cut off the interior portion of land sections from county roads. We had an applicant ask, well, what does that mean? There's a great example of that. It's on 143rd, just west of Gardner Road. The property along 143rd is platted into piano key lots, and there's an older residential subdivision to the north. The 80-acre interior property is completely cut off except for a 40-foot wide driveway to the property. Since I've been here over the last 10 years, we've been fielding calls from people wanting to purchase that property and develop it beyond just the residential house and barn. And this will be very difficult to resolve and will take major infrastructure investment by a private property owner. Development like in these patterns can impede future subdivision development patterns by not providing connection to undeveloped properties. This is isolated development, which leads to more isolated development. It's not the pay-it-forward type of development or connected development envisioned in the comp plan, and it's encouraged in the regulations. More importantly, it allows development not related to where infrastructure and services are or where they're planned. This makes it harder to make decisions about how and where to invest public dollars to get the biggest bang from these limited resources. It's not predictable. I'll just finish with land division can occur in keeping with the comp plan and in full compliance with regulations. This is a recent example. On September 28th, you approved a final development plan for the Sunrise at Timber Ridge subdivision at the far southern edge of the county at Cedar Niles and 215th Street. This was 94 acres of planned rural zoning with a large area of floodplain, and it's being developed into 12 residential lots along a local cul-de-sac from 215th Street with a water main extension to serve the future homes. No waivers, full compliance with the regulations. It takes investment by the developer, but it can happen. With that, I stand for questions you have for staff. The applicant is not here this morning. He's represented by Attorney John Duggan and members of his realty team.
Ms. Ahal, let me ask you this. I want to make it clear I did not support the zoning change that occurred here several months ago. And now, within just a few months, we have this property back before us to further split into piano key lots. I completely understand the financial aspects and the cost of developing. But let me ask you this. Obviously, sewers are not available, as you stated, from Olathe. What kind of acreage does the county require to put in septic tanks?
I'm sorry?
What's the minimum acreage?
2 acres are the minimum size required for on-site septic systems.
So this tract could be further subdivided and additional lots placed. It seems to me like that, that would be the appropriate plan to look at and review as far as this tract is concerned, quite frankly. So there is the opportunity. Again, my point is, within a few months, this tract comes back for further splitting. And I think the important issue in regards to upholding the Carnet plan is important, but there would be opportunities, even if that Carnet plan were in place and upheld, for further development of this tract. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right, is the applicant, Mr. Dugan, present?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. John Duggan, 11040 Oakmont, Overland Park, Kansas, here on behalf of the applicant. Let me dispel the 2-acre lot myth right out of the gate. It's not available here. This part of the county does not provide for 2 to 3 acre lots. In fact, that was brought specifically to the attention of the Board of Zoning members. They asked about it, and Ms. Hayhow directly answered that question to them at the most recent hearing and said, it's not available here, period. This area is not master planned for 3 acre lots. The minimum here is 10 acre lots. And Chairman Folks focused the attention of the Board of Zoning and said, listen, really all we're talking about here today is whether we're going to have one access point for 2 lots, 4 and 5, or whether we build an interior street and get 3 lots instead of 2 lots for 4 and 5. Because Mr. Prim already has a guaranteed existing access point on the proposed Lot 6, cannot be taken away from him. And the Board of Zoning looked at it and said, listen, why would the county want to urge approval of the 30 acres that comprise lots 4 and 5 into 3 10-acre lots roughly with an interior road so that we have 3 homes exiting at 1 access point instead of 2, particularly when the developer doesn't want it. And it seemed like when we got right down to it, the comments from the zoning board were rather clear. The developer doesn't want it. The tax revenues generated from 3 homes that would comprise 3 lots instead of lots 4 and 5 would never cover the expense of maintaining the road. Why would the county suggest that that would be an alternative when the developer doesn't want it and it doesn't seem to be financially feasible? The most likely desirable result is exactly what was proposed by the developer. And to suggest from the staff that this is somehow unseemly on the part of the developer to come back to you and ask for the division of the 50 acres into these 3 lots is just untenable. This is the way the staff told the developer to proceed. The developer went to the staff and wanted to do 1 plat up front, and the staff told the developer, no, go for the 3 lots on Moonlight first, then come back and divide the 50 acres. The developer is only following what the staff recommended. And, importantly, the developer is doing exactly what the commission told the developer to do. When the commission remanded this back the first time, the commission told the developer, go back to the Board of Zoning and have them look at this in its entirety. What will this look like when the developer is done? When we came back and the 3 lots on Moonlight were approved, these 3 lots, 4, 5, and 6, were discussed at length during that hearing. During that hearing, the developer said, if you approve lots 1, 2, and 3 with the access points, I'll be coming back and asking for the further division of the 50 acres, precisely what we're doing now. And it's exactly what the Board of Zoning
considered and recommended unanimously. There were several very important points made by the Board of Zoning, and they made it very clear that the driveways that are proposed by the developer here meet the minimum separation for Carnap access. So the driveways, the three that you see on 127th Street, are all separated by the minimum requirements of 400 feet between each one of them, as set forth in the Carnap plan. Board member, one of the board members made the very salient point and said, you know, interestingly enough, if this were developed at some point in the future to 3 lots per acre, it's highly likely that we'd have at least 3 access points coming out on 127th Street for a residential development of 3 lots to the acre. So why would we oppose somebody who wants to put 4 homes along there and have the same number of access points if we fully developed it like an urban subdivision with 3 lots per acre? The long and the short of it is that what's presented today is an alternative. The staff has suggested maybe an internal road for lots 4 and 5. Maybe dividing that and picking up an extra bonus lot because you get to count the right-of-way for the road in the calculation of the square footage for the lots. There's 30 acres there. 30 acres divided by 10, we get 3 lots. Even though technically they wouldn't be a full 10 acres, we would be permitted to do so. The developer has no interest. There's no reason to do it. The logic behind this is we don't want an access point to bring traffic onto 127th Street. Why would an access point for 3 lots be better than 1 access point for 2 lots? Logic dictates it's not. And moreover, logic dictates that adding 1 additional lot and the tax revenues collected on 3 homes could never cover the cost to maintain an interior road. That's why the developer is simply requesting that the board approve the unanimous recommendation of the Board of Zoning and approve the proposal. I stand for questions. Thank you.
Questions of the applicant?
Question.
Mr. Schaefer.
Mr. Dugan, I'm having difficulty understanding when you say they abided by staff recommendations, and then I read strong reasons for denial. Could you compare those to me? Maybe you would want to address that as well, okay?
Let me be clear, and I appreciate the question.
Yeah, it's a valid point, I think.
It's a very valid point, but
you claim
you're
we're doing what we
oranges.
recommend, but we want to deny it. Give me an answer to that, please.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. The applicant went to the county with a contract to buy 80 acres, and when they went into the county with their engineers, they asked, how should we proceed? We want to do 6 lots. The staff recommended in the initial meetings with the applicant not to bring all 6 lots before the zoning board and the county commission at one time, but to do it incrementally. And incrementally, the staff recommended to the applicant apply for lots 1 through 3 and a 50 lot number 4. Then come back a second time and request a further subdivision of lot 4 into the 3 lots. That's the recommendation that I'm referring to. That was the suggestion of the staff when the applicant met with the staff. The staff then, once the applicant, and the staff made clear, I don't want there to be any misgivings here. The staff said, listen, whether you come forward with 6 or you come forward with 3 at a time, we're not going to recommend approval because the county doesn't want this on Carnap roads. That's what the staff told the applicant. But to do it in 2 steps was the recommendation and suggestion of the staff. And then to suggest somehow or imply somehow that the applicant is acting improvidently by coming back a second time in such a short period of time just is entirely inconsistent with the initial suggestion and recommendation of the staff. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, more or less. Now, but when we voted on this X months ago on 1, 2, and 3, I recall that staff recommended denial at that point in time as well.
They did, and it was approved 4 to 3 based upon the recommendation of the zoning board.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'm hoping Mrs. Hayhow will be able to address this maybe later or if that's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah,
Mr. Ishcraft, you had a question?
I
The
do,
applicant.
not of the applicant directly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Schaefer, did you want a response from the staff to your question?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mrs. Hayhow, if you would answer, try and respond to that, please.
Certainly. try to get a good graphic here. Okay, if you can picture this as an 80-acre tract when they came into staff initially.
Yes.
They they talked to staff. I wasn't part of those discussions, but we told them the property was eligible for division from 1 into 2. It was eligible. So that was the conversation, is that it could be divided. They brought back in a tract split and a 3-lot plat at the same time. The tract split was to create this Lot 4, which is a 50-acre piece.
Mm-hmm.
Staff couldn't approve that tract split because it was wider than it was deep, and it didn't meet the regulations for lot width to depth. We had to process a plat exception. If you remember with the first plat, the only way to get what they were requesting was to plat the property and ask for a plat exception for Lot 4 to be wider than it is deep. So when they came in with what they wanted, the only way to get what they wanted was to go through the plat process. So that's why it may seem like staff told them to do this, but that was what they brought to us, and we figured out how to make it work. We didn't support it, but that was the only way we could process it. We couldn't approve that tract split as it was configured.
May I ask another question then? Sure. If what we're discussing today is denied, what does that do to 1, 2, and 3?
1, 2, and 3 are recorded.
That's done.
1, 2, 3, and 4 are recorded. They are done.
So there's no impact there?
No impact there.
Yeah. Mr. Ashcraft, do you have a question?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Following up on your comments earlier, I'm a little bit confused about the, I think you said 3-acre versus what the applicants, Mr. Duncan, said were 3 plots. What's the answer on that? How does that work?
The property zoned RUR, and that's a 10-acre minimum size. If it were to be rezoned to RLD or RN2, the RN2 allows 2-acre size lots. The RLD is a 3-acre minimum size. Okay. The property could then develop into the 2- and 3-acre size lots that Chairman Eilert was talking about. It can't be broken that way as currently zoned.
Okay. Or are is this action changing that zoning?
No, they're not requesting to rezone the property.
Okay, thank you.
The rezoning could be considered, however.
A person could come in and rezone this property and develop it into 2- and 3-acre size lots.
Okay.
The city of Olathe abuts this property on the west side?
It doesn't abut the property. You can see in this graphic the gray area with the dotted outline is the city limits. It's about a quarter-mile away from the corner. Okay. This green property is the future Cedar Niles Park.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Allen.
Ms. Hayhow, can you put up the proposed plot plan? And
this one?
Yes.
Okay.
And I voted against the first one, and more than likely will vote against this one. But just on, I'm real big on access on Carnip Road, so as possible if we can limit those. But my question would it be possible where it says direct access to Lot 3 to move that over to the right a little bit and would access Lot 3 and 4 and then move the access part from where it's between 4 and 5 over to the right? That way you could possibly eliminate one driveway access out of that.
If we were looking at this in its entirety, yes, that would have been possible. But at this point, the 3 on Moonlight.
I understand that, but
right.
to approve the additional, to make the requirement to move the direct access for Lot 3 to the lot line between 3 and 4, and then the other access between 5 and 6. So I'm not in favor of it, but I mean, one of the things, and I was at a MART transportation meeting this week, and they gave the population projections for the metropolitan area. This was a time frame for 23 years to 2040. And their projection, again, is 153,000 additional residents for Johnson County. And I just think I have an obligation to look long-term, and when we allow these access points, and if we don't draw a line in the sand somewhere, it has significant and long-term impact on what the county is going to have. And I know the applicant is going to talk about sewer availability and everything else, but I'm looking at the overall county and limiting these and what potentially happens in the future, and I'm not a big fan of piano-type lots. So I think we need to always keep that in mind is when we make these exceptions, some of them may be valid, but we need to think when this county's built out what we're putting future traffic patterns and type of development as this county continues to grow. So to me, that's the major concern. Thank you.
Okay, other questions of staff? Mr. Brown?
I had a question of counsel, Mr. Duggan. Mr. Duggan, do you have any estimate, or does your team have any estimate of what the frontage road that's being discussed would cost to put on the ground?
Yeah, so there's been a discussion about the possibility of inserting a road somewhere in the 30 acres that comprises lots 4 and 5. And when you boil it down to that, road costs are skyrocketing, as everybody knows. Inflation has actually hit the public works sector. We're building roads. I'm a developer in Cedar Creek, and they're just skyrocketing. But a ballpark estimate of a very short, truncated road to go in and access 3 lots between lots 4 and 5, because you're going to have to essentially make a lot across the back of that 30 acres and 2 lots on each side. So you're going to have to access straight down that line. It could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $450,000. Water line, power, asphalt. Those are the bare essentials to a county improved road. By the time you grade it, provide the intersection in and out, develop that road and put water lines and power back there, that's what the cost would be estimated to be. And the developer simply says, for one more lot, it's not worth it. And quite frankly, I think from the fiscal responsibility of the county, that's an expensive road over 25 years to maintain and probably have to be replaced in 20 years.
I would respectfully disagree with that last comment. That means there should be no roads provided in the county, quite frankly. Thank you.
If I may, I don't think that's true, but again, this is a different type of road to serve 3 people, not a road to serve hundreds of people that goes across the county. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
I had some additional comments. Not for you. Thank you, Mr. Duggan. I would point out that on a frontage road that we're talking about that is going to be a privately owned, installed and privately owned and maintained road, would require an agreement with all 3 property owners to fund maintenance, snow clearing, repair, grind and overlay, the necessary maintenance that goes with a shared road. I would point out that the City of Overland Park and the City of Lenexa have completely abandoned the idea of privately owned streets for the very reason I just laid out. When one of those owners doesn't properly fund their piece, the other 2 end up petitioning the government body to handle it for them, and then it becomes our responsibility and falls back on our plate. Now we've got 2 roads on that section to take care of. So I would point out there's a reason that those 2 cities abandoned the idea of privately owned roads. I have also, additionally, I've encouraged a consideration of a revamp of our Johnson County Comprehensive Plan, and there has been no action on that until this week, although I will say, in fairness, that we have had an interim planning director. Now we have a permanent planning director, and that conversation has begun. It seems to me that I don't like sitting here and disagreeing with our staff, but I have a personal conviction that is going to put me in a position to do that yet again today. And I also don't believe that it's okay to hold this property to a higher standard, recognizing that there is a discussion coming involving the 2 zoning boards and our planning commission, which have clearly been opposed to the idea of this frontage road idea. That's how we got the 1 through 3 approved and recommended approval from those boards to begin with, recognizing that those bodies are going to be involved in deliberations of revamping the comprehensive plan. I would submit that we are probably going to be headed down a little bit different road in our looking forward thought, and as such, holding this piece of property to that higher standard would make it unfair to this developer and to this landowner. And for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion. Thank you.
Well, I'll ask for public comment.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michaelyn Molina with Keller Williams, 14119 Park Hill Street, Overland Park, Kansas. I was in the original meeting. I represent Mr. Prem and had his land for sale. I was in the original meeting when Mr. Coyle proposed this whole plat and said, we understand it will be a denial, we're not putting in an interior road, you're not going to recommend it. I sell most of the land, working with the farmers out in this area, luxury properties on land that are very similar to these 15 and 10 acre tracts. To Mr. Brown's point, that a very good example of that interior road being maintained by homeowners is Moonlight Ranch, just to the north of this property. It's a very poor road, potholes, no one can agree on fixing it, and it's really damaged the property values in that area. Lots that have gone undeveloped and not been able to be developed. But so there's a lot of empty land out there with beautiful homes, and it's just hurting their property value. So that interior road wasn't an option for him. So he had originally proposed this. He had proposed this 6 acre or 6 lot tract, and planning said, you know, we won't recommend that. I said, I don't want to have this happen because this is going to hold up, it's going to delay it. Everybody knew from the beginning this was what was going to happen, so I can understand how you all would feel that this is maybe 2 parts and bamboozled a little bit, but it was always proposed even before the zoning board. I would rather have gone a lot quicker, and he originally had gone this, but planning said this is maybe the best way to go about it. And then the zoning board said, we only want 1 lot. We want to keep the integrity of the area, or 1 access point. We want to keep the integrity of the area and not have a ton of roads or cars coming up and down. Keep it a beautiful, not as much traffic, beautiful homes out in that area. So I just want you all to know that was originally proposed in that first original meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, there's no one else to be heard. Mr. Brown, you have a motion.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I move to approve a preliminary and final plat for 3 residential lots to be known as Cedar Ranch 2, and to approve a minimum infrastructure waiver from the requirement to build a new subdivision street, and instead allow 2 direct access locations to 127th Street, 1 shared for lots 5 and 6, and 1 direct, which is an existing, for lot 7, subject to the stipulations recommended by the zoning board.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the recommendation made by the zoning board. I'm going to oppose this motion for the reasons that I've stated earlier, but you know, without reviewing the comprehensive plan, it seems to me like what we're doing with this track is going back a decade or more ago and embracing the piano key lot process that was rejected back in those times. I don't see anything has changed since those times. In fact, you know, I'm not fond of private streets. I've been there, and I understand what happens. But the opportunity for this track, it seems to me, is to develop to a higher level of development than just 6 lots, and incorporate public streets into that design. And all it would take would be a request to rezone the property. And so for that reason, I'm going to oppose this motion. Excuse me, Cindy?
I need to clarify something. The motion as read references lots 5 and 6 and then a direct existing access on lot 7. I don't believe there's a lot 7. I believe it's actually 4 and 5, and maybe Ms. Hayhow could address this.
Right, there is no 7.
Sorry, this graphic is my graphic. Lot 4 was the underlying lot that was part of the first plat. My understanding is with the RTA, to keep from getting confused, they start the numbering process sequentially. So 4 on the first plat, the second plat starts with the number 5. So these, what you've got on the graphic here, I was put together to show the access points on the roads. These numbers should actually say 5, 6, and 7.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. Looking at an aerial, it does not look like it is probable that 127th will ever be connected with Harold. It will always be kind of an appendage off of 135th because of the city dump and Ernie Miller Park. So I see it as being out in the country. Now, it will develop. I get that. But I wanted to respond a little bit to Commissioner Allen's observation, and he got me thinking. Mr. Allen, you referenced some MARC statistics about growth, another 150,000 people in the next number of years. And, I think that's a valid issue, and it potentially impacts the development of properties like this. But as I think about it, and I'm just putting words to thoughts, so this is not necessarily fully developed. But if we push back and do not allow piano key development like this and make that the policy for denser development, then that to me would seem to make it easier to spur growth. And when I say spur growth in the sense of sprawling growth, rather than trying to encourage motivations that growth should be more infill into the existing structures, infrastructure of the county, by trying to push properties like this to be more densely populated and pushing population further out from the core services, then we almost, it seems like, argue against growth paying for itself. Because we've talked about the privately owned road or the interior road, even publicly owned. If we encourage that without balancing efforts to encourage infill growth and redevelopment, I just am not sure I'm there yet. So for that reason, as a general rule, I think arguments of, and it's somewhat pejorative to say piano key, but this type of development, I don't know that I have a necessary objection to. Now, in some circumstances, maybe, but given that 127th is, I would argue, somewhat of an appendage road of 135th, will never be a thoroughfare all the way across the county, and that I think growth should pay for itself, and we should have policies, not just land development, but wastewater and so forth, that encourages infill growth. I will support this motion.
Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Allen?
Just one final comment, and obviously there's valid points on both sides here. The problem I have is we're making exceptions on access points. This is originally an 80-acre tract, and sometime in the future, sewers would be available. And I understand the property owner has the right to develop his property, but where I would maybe disagree is, that's fine as long as there's not exceptions, and we're making exceptions on access points. And I'd come back to my earlier point, it's just not this property. I'm more worried about setting a standard as the county continues to develop and we have these different access points. So I'm taking more of a broader view, and I know it would be time before sewers were there, but if you want to develop your property, I think we need to come up with a standard, and that's what we're going to look at. It's just, to me, is the exceptions on the access points. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right, the motion is before us. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer?
No.
Commissioner Allen?
No.
Commissioner Clickham?
Yes.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Eilert?
No. I have 4 in favor, 3 opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 6, resolution number 084-17, Consider approving a second extension of the expiration of a preliminary development plan for construction of a motor vehicle test track at 207th Street and Metcalf Avenue. Joe Efforts, applicant.
Mr. Malat.
Good morning. Jeff Malat for the Planning Department. On October 8th, 2015, the applicant received a preliminary development plan approval for a motor vehicle test track. It's just west of Metcalf Avenue on 207th Street. This is the applicant's last diagram of that we received earlier this year of what that track would look like and where it's located. Before the applicant can build, however, he needs to have a final development plan approved. County regulations have a one-year expiration of a preliminary development plan. If the final is not applied for by that time, then it expires. However, there are opportunities for extension. The things that staff is charged with looking at as to whether or not we recommend approval is whether surrounding property characteristics have changed and whether the development standards applied have changed. The applicant received one extension that extended it to October 8th, 2017. It's not quite ready, but he tells us almost, and he can speak more to that. And he's asking for one more extension in order to get us a grading plan and all the final plans in prior to construction. We're recommending approval. The applicant is here to answer questions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is really just a technical extension of that approval a year ago, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Questions of the commission?
Extension for one more year?
One more year.
Mr. Clicken?
Mr. Chairman, I would raise the question on whether or not he would need 1 year or 2 year extension. And in discussing this, because I'm aware of his efforts as far as getting the financial support and sponsorship needed to move this thing forward, I was questioning whether or not he could get that all accomplished within this year. But he feels like he advised me that he feels like he can get this done within the year, probably in less than that. So I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any comments the applicant would like to make? Okay.
Joe Efforts, 7800 West 207th Street in Stillwell, property owner. I don't really have anything to add other than the fact that I think that when we initially got this approved, that first year was not enough time. And it has to do with the fact that you have to get something approved to go out and find out if you can finance it and do all that. And so it's taken that time. I feel like we're there. Nothing has really changed. Actually, I'm very excited about it. And kind of why I have the podium here, I'd just also like to take a moment to let you know that at Stonegate and in the in the community of Stillwell, that we have raised over $150,000 for military charities since we started this project. And sometimes I feel like I should be a charity because I spent so much time on charitable deals. But as it relates to this project, we're right where we need to be. I have an international track designer. Safety and noise have been our biggest concerns, and these things take time to do it right and takes money, and we're finally there. So that's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission on this item? All right, a motion would be in order. Mr. Clicken?
I move to adopt resolution number 084-17, which approves the time extension of the expiration date of the preliminary development plan originally approved by the Board of County Commissioners pursuant to resolution number 062-15 and first extended on February 23rd, 2017 pursuant to resolution number 010-17, subject to the stipulations set forth within the resolution.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the preliminary plan as previously approved for an additional 1 year. Any other discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Clickham? Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Eilert?
Aye. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 7, resolution number 083-17, consider setting a date, time, and place for consideration of the island annexation requested made by the city of Olathe, Kansas, and direct the city to provide notice and requested information.
Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Bob Ford, Legal Department, sitting in for Mr. Lynn today. This is a resolution that sets a time, date, and place for a public hearing for an island annexation request made by the city of Olathe. The staff received this request to approve an island annexation of property into the city limits of Olathe. The real property is about a 2-acre tract located just west of the intersection of Lone Elm and 175th Street. It does not adjoin the main body of the Olathe city limits, but it's contiguous to another island of land the city has previously annexed. The property owners have given their written consent. The state statute requires the board to give notice and hold a public hearing, and absent calling a special meeting, that date would be November 2nd, 2017. So this resolution will set the date and time of the hearing for November 2nd.
Okay. Questions of the staff? This specifically, this is just to set the date and the time for the public hearing, no specific decision in regards to the request.
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Clickham?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The plot, just to restate, that piece of land, ANX 17-001, which we're asking to be annexed in, or what it is completely surrounded, that whole area around there on both east, west, and south is already annexed in. This is just the final piece, correct?
I would doubt that, not knowing. I would doubt it if it's an island annexation. To me, that means...
An island annexation within an island annexation.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the reason it's before us.
Right.
The question I'm asking, that area that's green,
I believe that is within the city.
that's what I'm wondering,
Yes.
whether or not that's already, all of that's annexed in as part, and this is a final piece of that little square there.
That's my understanding, but I will confirm that for next Thursday for you.
No, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Brown, you have a...
No, nothing, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? All right, do I hear a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Osterhaus?
I'll move that the board adopt resolution number 083-17, which sets the board's regularly scheduled business session of November 2nd, 2017 as the date for consideration of the island annexation request made by the city of Olathe, and directs the city to provide notice and requested information as more fully set forth within the resolution.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution as noted. Any further questions or discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Clickham?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 8, consider authorizing an FY 2017 start date for the FY 2018 approved email e-discovery replacement project, e-discovery project, and authorize the reallocation and expenditure of fund balances reserves for FY 2017 out of the general fund in the amount of $580,000 to fund the e-discovery project, authorizing contracts for licenses for Microsoft Exchange Online, a new enterprise e-discovery solution per RFP number 2017-018, and associated migration services for an initial cost total not to exceed $949,860, and providing the county manager the authority to exercise the option to finalize purchase of the e-discovery software following successful testing.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Michael Aldridge, DTI Director and Chief Information Officer. I'm here to talk about two projects that we're extremely excited about. We decided, because they're interdependent, that we would talk about them together. First project I'll walk through is moving our email system into the cloud. It's currently on premises. The second piece of the project is a replacement of our e-discovery system. This product is aging out of service and will be out of support by the end of next year. There are tremendous advantages to both of these initiatives, and I'll highlight just a few. The move from our email system into the cloud offers us a higher availability system. Those of you who remember the lightning strike from last year where we had a negative impact on our system, that type of thing would be avoided by having the redundancy. Additionally, we will have larger mailboxes. We have better spam filtering. Additionally, this move will flatten out the budgeting process, meaning this is a subscription service as opposed to about a 5-year cycle in which we would have to invest significantly in capital to replace the equipment on premises. And lastly, I would share that we're doing all this for virtually the same cost as what we're spending today. I'll pause there on the email and see if there are questions, and then with your...
Why don't you go ahead and the presentation?
I'm happy to do that. So the e-discovery system is something that's in place today that refers to all county processes that are involved in the search, preservation, and the ability to produce electronically stored information. It's required by statute, and again, something that's in place today. The system we have is older and requires a good deal of manual processes for us to meet our obligation. The new system will introduce efficiencies that should translate to reduced staff time required to meet our obligation. And I think that's really all I have to share about that. Last thing that I would point out is there are 4 pieces to these 2 projects. I talked about the exchange licenses, so we would have to purchase those on an annual basis. We also would need to purchase the Xylab product. That's the replacement for the Mimosa e-discovery product. The remaining 2 pieces are the migration from our current e-discovery system to the new, and the migration of our current email to the new email system. I'll pause there if there are questions.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've had the opportunity to visit with Mr. Aldridge and his legal counsel a couple of times on these projects, and I would offer that I am supportive of this effort. I think there's a lot of logic to it. Personally, I would confess I don't really understand the cloud and the cloud protocols, but that is the fad, the way we are going or technology is going. So I respect that. I do have hesitancy about using the argument that it will allow us to have larger mailboxes. I'm sure that's a good thing for some of us, but to me, it just is an opportunity to not throw things away and just collect information. But that's an aside argument. The one thing I wanted Mr. Aldridge to elaborate a little bit on is down under the analysis. He makes reference to that this would be a significant cost savings, and I was wondering if he could elaborate on that, because our conversations seem to suggest that there really wasn't a savings, but there was a hope for or anticipated cost avoidance, and if he could share that with us, I would appreciate it.
Yes, I'm happy to do so, Commissioner. There are some cost savings, but I would, to your point, agree that the most significant thing for the county is this is really a cost avoidance. Recall that as it exists today, we are not in the high availability configuration, meaning we don't have the redundancy that we will achieve. For us to duplicate that, I did map that out over a 5-year period, and what that translates to, such that we would be comparing what we're moving towards to what we might duplicate if we wanted to achieve the same, translates to a cost avoidance of north of $900,000. And so the nuance of that is, of course, as it exists today, we are not in a similar configuration, if that makes sense. So that's why it's not truly savings, it is cost avoidance. But it is achieving, I would offer, something that's important to staff and to the commissioners in the direction that we protect and support county information and technology, the board priority number 3.
And just to clarify, there are some limits in terms of price expansions going with the cloud, are there not? I mean, it wouldn't be one of these circumstances that we've committed to the cloud and all of a sudden Microsoft or whoever shoots costing up through the roof. I mean, we would have recourse.
To my knowledge, Microsoft does not cap its annual increases. For my calculations, I estimated that they might increase as much as 5%. My response to you would be that if Microsoft were to price itself out of the market, that we would bring our equipment back on premises. This is a subscription service, so there's not a long-term commitment.
Okay. And one last question then, and you make the point, and you've made it a couple of times, that the on-premises protocols are subject to disruption. You referenced the lightning strike, and I understand that. But how do we deal with cloud storms, cloud disruptions? Do they just never occur, or how do we deal with that?
I would suggest that those situations absolutely do occur. I would say they occur to a lesser extent by making a transition like we are into the government cloud. Additionally, as compared to today, where we have one data center that we're relying upon, in the cloud configuration, we will have multiple data centers, such that if one data center was impacted through a cloud storm, if I can use your words, we would fail over to the other data center that is spread out in a different part of the United States.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission on this item? All right, it's back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Do I hear a motion?
No, we
wait on
do
the
it.
cloud
It's so
to come
long.
in and,
I've got a motion here.
Yeah. Mr. Osterhaus, you're the techie in this group. I know that.
I'll move to authorize a fiscal year 2017 start date for the fiscal year 2018 approved email e-discovery replacement project, and authorize the reallocation expenditure of fund balance reserves for fiscal year 2017 out of the general fund in the amount of $580,000 to fund the e-discovery project, to authorize contracts with Zylab per RFP number 2017-018, SHI International and Horizon Consultings to purchase licenses for Microsoft Exchange Online, a new enterprise e-discovery solution, and associated migration services for an initial cost total not to exceed $949,860, and providing the county manager the authority to exercise the option to finalize purchase of the e-discovery software following successful testing.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the request as noted in the motion. Is there any further questions or discussion?
If these motions keep getting this long, we may not get anyone to make them in the future. Gosh.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Clickham.
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Are there any other items to be considered on the action agenda?
No, sir.
All right, turning to reports and communications, Mr. Zacharias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few items this morning. First of all, information from the Sheriff's Office. Good news that indeed they have been able to fill virtually all the vacancies in the Sheriff's Office. There'll be more information coming to you next week, and the Sheriff will be here to talk more about that. But good news and good efforts of the Civil Service Board, the Sheriff's Office, and also our county HR department. So we'll hear more about that next week. Second of all, you have information in your packets about the 2017 SERI indicators for October. A few things I guess I'd point out with that as we look at that document. Information on unemployment. Unemployment still remains pretty low, about 3.5%, so that's good news, a little bit down from what it was last month. On the issues of home sales are still very robust, about 7% increase from this time last year. Overall, month-to-month, about 4% increase as well. However, the number of homes being sold is stagnant. It's about the same as it was last year. Additionally, the number of permits is up slightly, which is good news, but still behind the 2007 numbers. Probably the most dramatic change difference is probably the number of, or lack of numbers of building permits for multifamily units, down to 0 the last 3 months. So I think we definitely have hit the high water mark that way and kind of going back down to levels that were done back in 2010 and so forth. But that's a dramatic change from what it was previously, in my view. Value residential construction, even though we might be building kind of a stagnant information about new building construction in homes, the value of those is going down a bit. So it appears we're building same number of homes, but the value of those are going to be somewhat less, is the way I would interpret. Total retail sales is still good, about 2%, 3% increase, which translates into hopefully 2 or 3% increase in revenue from sales themselves, which would be good news for us as we talk about financing various county projects with sales tax revenue. Consumer confidence remains very strong, both currently and future trends, which is good. And of course, I think consumer price index remains pretty much in check as well, about a 2%, both nationally and also in the metro area. So those are good items from that point. Now let me hold there for a minute if you have any questions about that.
Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Not then, thank you. We'll move on. Just we are doing contractor licensing activities this week. And I think Jay went ahead and have some information about kind of activities going on there that we might talk about for a moment.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Jay Leipzig, Planning Development Codes. As you all are aware, our department is multifaceted. We have planning, which obviously extensive discussion this morning, building, but the other component of that is contractor licensing. And really it's the hallmark of the region, possibly even the country for licensing. And it really is a premier program, tracks contractors from all over the region, the metro area. And this week, coming up on October 30th, we have our licensing program a fall conference. I'm going to introduce Russell Thornburg, the contract licensing manager, in just a moment.
Thank you for allowing me this time. It's quite an honor and it's quite a privilege to get to be here today. I get really, really, really excited about the education that Johnson County provides. Not from a kid from outside watching this program, which means I was from Minnesota and watched this thing for many, many years, but did not know what's behind the fence. I made a goal this year to try to reach 8,000 people in seats, get 8,000 contractors into seats. Made a goal for that. Very, very close to meeting that. We also made it in several other goals, but just to give you a little idea, when we say many other states, how about 31 states? How about another country, as in Quebec coming and visiting us? Now, last year we had 3 countries. This year we have 1. But isn't that cool to have that many people? And let me share this with you. Over 5,000 are coming in from 31 different states that wants to build here in Johnson County. Isn't that cool? The neat thing about it is we have 43 instructors. Now, I'm excited about some of the instructors, but I don't want to forget the ones in the background. We've got attorneys, we've got lawyers, we got the assistant DA, we've got all kinds of people in our backyard still giving us the backbone. And we also have some people coming in for the first time who have taught Notre Dame. And I'm excited for this new engineer to come in and work with us. Can't wait to hear him. Each one of our instructors that we have coming has a story behind them. And some of them I have taught with side by side for maybe 10 years. Some I've never met before. So we talk about this being an elite program, but what we have in behind the closed doors, the Founding Fathers made this a broad opening, and I just want to say thank you. With that, I also want to remind ourselves that we have a little over 3,400 contractors that's already renewed with us. We got 552 new businesses that are coming in. And the neat thing behind all that is that we have a great staff that's come together to help us hold this together. And I brought one young lady with me today, Samantha Nichols, who is my assistant, helps me put this together. And I just wanted to find some way to brag some way to say something positive about contractor licensing. But the biggest thing and the reason I had asked Mr. Honus if I could come here today is invite you to the convention center. And you know what? We always want to say, come for lunch. I don't want you to just come for lunch. I want you to come find me and let me introduce you to some of these great instructors, these people who are coming to be part of our program. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Russell, I just wanted to tell you thank you for the presentation and brag a little bit on you. In your time of running contractor licensing, I, as a member of that body and participant in the continuing education that occurs, couldn't be more pleased with the direction we're headed. It had been in good hands. It's been transitioned to good hands, and I see a bright future for where we're going. As a person who helped create the legislation that actually put contractor licensing in place in Johnson County, I can tell you I've watched it closely, and I've also at times watched it from afar. I do know this. 7 continents on Earth, 6 have been represented in the 15-plus years that we've had a contractor licensing program. That's impressive by any standard. I don't care if you're a university putting that on. That's a big deal. So the program is first class. It's first rate. I too, as a member and a participant and as a student, will be participating in contractor licensing. And anybody who would like to come and sit beside me, I'd encourage you. Come and join me. Thank you.
Can you find us a parking place too?
I can. I'll help you with that.
Last time I was out there, that was a challenge, but that's a good challenge.
Get there early.
Thank you very much.
Get early.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more item, if we can, real quickly. There, just a report from the last commission meeting. You asked us to go ahead and present information or get information about Dr. Green's house, residential house, with the city of Olathe. Joe has a short report for that. You have some, I think, materials as well, but we just want to give you a briefing on that and get any sort of direction you want to give us on that project.
Mr. Waters.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Waters, County Manager's Office. You have a report before you. I apologize for not getting it to you very much in advance, but we've been working pretty diligently on it since the assignment came our way last week. There are hard copies that Alice Amrine has, if anyone in the audience would like a copy. Last week, as I said, Commissioners, you sent us off to investigate the possibilities of some alternative solutions for the Dr. Green residence, 109 West Poplar, to see if we could get out ahead of the demolition of that property and do something different. We met with the city, with the Olathe Historical Society, reviewed what work has been done, the efforts that have been going on since 2016 to look for ways to save the house or relocate it. The city, along with the Historical Society at various stages here, have attempted to work that through with the prior owner. They have worked with a potential developer that had a broader idea that didn't get anywhere either, and they put an RFP out to see if they could find someone to sell either one of the houses or both of the houses that are on the site for the courthouse. That did not get them anywhere either. After having exhausted those options, gone down, time is going by, and now we're at a place where the courthouse site really needs to be cleared. So to meet their obligations that they've made to us, they have approved a contract this Tuesday evening to demolish clear the site and demolish this building.
Okay. All right, thank you. Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Waters, I am dumbfounded by the figures that you've offered, and I would say after reading that momentarily, I was speechless. And I have had conversations on this topic, on this property over the last several months, and most of the figures that I had heard were significantly less than this. But I do understand that the property has devolved, if that's the right word. The individuals that were in the property were given an opportunity to extract certain components of it, and evidently they did a very good job, a significant job, maybe good is the wrong term. I would be interested, though, in learning more about these figures because they're 6 or 7 times the amounts that had been talked about before, and if what this would mean, and in some brief conversations, I think, with the county manager, these figures would represent bringing the house up to its original glory. I'm not trying to overstate that, but and that includes top to bottom all the things that you have listed on this supplemental information, as well as site development and redevelopment. And are there any other measures that could be considered that would make this more feasible, or is this an all or nothing approach?
I would say that the cost figures are based on, it is a broad range, because there's a lot of work to do to really refine what is it we would be trying to recreate. I don't believe it should be, that if the county's going to own it, it should be turned into a home. So I think it's a different sort of a use. That is not intended to be a historical restoration of the interior that ship has sailed. Interior is not salvageable in that manner, but the exterior could be. In order to lower the numbers, and they may well be lower, we would need to find a way to get a house moving contractor in, which apparently has not been successful in the efforts over the last year to do so. But get somebody in who actually would do this and show them where it would go, and then get the other details worked out. It absolutely could be refined.
What was the thought process to move it? Because Mr. Allen had mentioned something about the property next to the sage, the tree, what?
The Osage
orange. Not sage oak, what it? Yeah.
Osage orange.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And which is basically across the street.
Yes, sir.
Because one of the problems before was trying to move it across the railroad tracks or something else. I mean, these figures stand even though the move would just be across the street?
I have only moved 3 houses. I am no moving expert. A lot of the expense is in the prep. I don't really know. We need to get, these numbers were given to me from research that the city had done, and that was over the phone with several different movers. But
well, I think arguing about or questioning, whatever the numbers are, the fact of the matter, the property belongs to the city of Olathe, and they have made that decision after good faith efforts to look at alternatives, and so we need to respect that decision. Any other questions?
Well, I think that the question we have, Commissioners, if you want us to take any other action, we view our work being completed here. If you want us in earnest to get more refined figures or to proceed with halting the demolition, we need to know that today, because the contract was approved on Tuesday. They're doing asbestos removal abatement right now, and the demolition is slated for, I think, in 14 days. So,
well, I'll go back to my last statement, and that is that we recognize the work that the city of Olathe did and the action that they've taken, and that's their decision. So I think we should
honor that.
Go off to the next item.
I'm going to make maybe one brief comment and I know there is a time crunch, but I'd like maybe just that one step to see what it would actually cost to move, and ask Olathe if they could accommodate us for a week or 10 days to come back and see if it's $50,000 or $200,000 to move that house, and if that's possible or not. So to give it a good faith effort. If it's not, it's not. But
well, I think we certainly can do whatever he wants to go and do. I think that we there are no movers out there that Olathe has been able to go and scare up that I know of.
Look, again, a couple summers ago, you moved the house from Shawnee to Overland Park. So, and I know you may have to bring in somebody out of town or whatever. But if that's possible, but I understand the time frame, and I don't think we're interested in spending $700,000 or $800,000 restoring the house. Right. So I get that. But
once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. So at least to see if we could move it for a reasonable cost, if the majority of the board wants to do it.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I agree with your comments, Chairman, that with the City of Olathe having already made the decision, I understand Commissioner Ashcraft and he and I have had conversations about his interest and the importance to him and to the community of that house, but I think that the ship has sailed with the interior being picked over. I would also, as a contractor, remind everyone in the room, winter is coming. I just had a discussion about the courthouse and the timeline that we're on. I don't want to do anything to slow that thing down. We need to get the building built. It is going to cost us an unbelievable amount of money each day that we are delayed in getting that building finished. So I would encourage everybody here to take that into account, and I believe it is time. We've done due diligence, and I believe it's time to move on. Thank you.
All right, well, unless there's a motion, case is closed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next item.
That's it, Mr. I think just commission comments, I think, at this point. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, turning to commission comments, Mr. Schaefer.
Well, thank you. It's been a busy week for me and a number of other members of the commission. I'll give you a brief description of the activities I've been involved with in this last week. Thursday afternoon last week, I was invited to attend the Labor Management Council of Greater Kansas City, and it was a public officials reception held down at Kauffman Center. Saturday morning, I'll let Commissioner Jim mention this, but Coffee Creek Trail dedication, ribbon cutting. Saturday afternoon, Johnson County Library Foundation, Library Let's Loose, sponsored, of course, at the main library. I will note something there. Jen and I invested $7 to buy 7 raffle tickets. So did Maury. 7 items to be given away at door-to-door prizes. I won 2 of them, okay? And then Maury won 1, okay? So we were all at the same table together, so we were all decided we should have gone to Las Vegas that night. All right, now, the second one I won, I gave back to let someone else win that, so that was a good night. So, Maury, congratulations, yeah. We haven't used ours yet. We intend to do so soon. Over the weekend, last weekend, Shawnee Mission Indian Mission Museum sponsored an activity there at the site. Indians and all kinds of teepees and all kinds of good things. It was a very, very good event. It always is every year. Tuesday lunch, 2 days ago, I was asked to attend the National Institute for Construction Excellence. It was their 3rd annual awards luncheon held down at the Marriott. Wednesday afternoon, I participated in our Consolidated Fire District No. 2 board meeting. And then last night, a number of us were there to celebrate the Shawnee Mission School District grand opening of their new Center for Academic Achievement, which, if you have a chance to go through that, it's quite a building. So, Ed.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Klicka. Mr. Ashcraft.
Mr. Chairman, 2 items. The first is I'm going to take my time to go back to the House because I can't let it go, so I'm going to offer a motion reflecting what Commissioner Allen suggested and ask staff to make that one last effort and ask for a vote.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded to what specifically is the motion content?
Mr. Allen, help me here, but to ask...
To get a price on what it would actually cost to move the house across the street.
To the parking, next to the tree?
Approximately by the tree.
And I'm going to ask for a clarification of that motion, just to move the house or to refurbish it? There's 2 different issues there.
I think at this time, just to find out what that cost would be.
Just to move it.
Okay. Well, I will oppose that motion. I've made the arguments last week. To remove additional land from the parking area for this structure, I think is really untenable, and we need to work with the City of Olathe as closely as possible. And they have done their due diligence on this, and they have made the decision that proceeding otherwise is not the best decision. So I will oppose the motion. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer?
No.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Klicka?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
No.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
No.
And Chairman Eilert?
No. I have Majority motions failed, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any other item, Mr. Ashcraft?
Mr. Chairman, yes. I wanted to ask you where you were 30 years ago today.
30 years ago today, I was in my business office watching the market crash.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Well, 30 years.
At the end of that day, I went home and told my spouse, I said, our life may have just changed significantly as a result of what happened today.
Well, it has, Mr. Chairman, because I wanted to shift gear and say, I noticed that your name appeared among a list of 250 most influential members of the leadership of the greater Kansas City region or something along those lines. So congratulations. Those 30 years have been good to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Mr. Allen.
Very quickly, Commissioner Schaefer, Commissioner Osterhaus, and Brown did join us Saturday morning for the Coffee Trail opening in Heritage Park. A beautiful setting where the trailhead starts, and just another investment that Johnson County Park and Rec District has made. And we were there. There are already residents biking and walking on that trail, but very impressive, and explained how it tied into the Olathe Trail, then back into the county trail. So another asset for the county's Park and Rec.
You've had a...
You had your turn. You can't go back.
Yeah. You had a comment, Mr. Klicka? I remember, I just
to
noticed
follow-
everybody, we're running behind.
To follow up with Commissioner Allen, I was remiss with all the stuff going on in the parks. We've got another groundbreaking happening, and that's next Thursday morning with the new aquatic center for Shawnee Mission School District. And if you're not aware of it, the Parks Commission and Shawnee Mission School District have entered into an agreement where the Parks Commission will be operating that new facility when completed. But the groundbreaking, unfortunately, can't be there because we will be sitting here doing county business. So,
Understand. All right, Mr. Osterhaus. Excuse me, Mr. Allen.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Osterhaus.
Briefly, I'll echo Commissioner Schaefer's comments on libraries and schools and parks. That was really well done, Jim. You did a great job representing the county. I did get an opportunity to go after the Coffee Creek Trail on a big Bull Creek tour. Some amazing things going on there. They're going to have a lot of stuff in 2018 to open up and be proud of. But to see the construction that's going on there was really phenomenal, and the stuff they had. And then, of course, today is Chiefs versus Raiders, one of our big rivalry games. I wore red today. So go Chiefs.
Yeah. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few items. First, I'd like to introduce Andre, who is with me shadowing today. He is from the east side of Ukraine and is here with through the United States State Department Foreign Leadership Exchange. He is shadowing with me today. He is staying here in Olathe with a family, is a senior at Olathe Northwest, Raven Pride, and is a good man. He's following me around today and is joining me, and I am happy to have him and introduce him to all of us here. Additionally, I would point out, I attended an event yesterday with the Gardner-Edgerton Chamber of Commerce along with the chairman. Growth continues at a rapid pace, and there are huge, big announcements coming. So more and more is coming there. I also attended the Veterans Court meeting downstairs a couple of days ago. It is enlightening, and it is refreshing, and it is a great program. And I'm glad to have attended it and to be a part of that, and I will continue to be a part of it going forward. And then finally, advanced voting by mail has begun. Vote. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for, the Veterans Court program is an outstanding program. And if anybody has an opportunity to attend one of that program or any of the graduations, please do. It's a great effort on behalf of our courts. We do have a committee of the whole session scheduled at 1 p.m. We also have an audit committee meeting scheduled at 2 p.m. Committee of whole meeting is in this room. The audit committee meeting is in the conference room. And finally, we do have a request for an executive session. Mr. Allen.
Mr. Chairman, for agenda review.
Following the agenda review.
20 minutes for agenda review.
That's fine. We'll give that a shot.
Yeah. I move that the board recess its open meeting and convene in executive session at approximately 11:55 for a period of 10 minutes for the purpose of receiving advice of counsel and to preserve the attorney-client privileges for communications related to a potential claim, and to reconvene an open session in this room at approximately 12:05 p.m. or there soon thereafter, as the executive session may end.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the request for the executive session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer? Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Klicka?
Aye.
Commissioner Osterhaus?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. That concludes the items on our agenda. We are in recess and will continue in recess from our business session until we follow the executive session as noted. We'll take a short break and come back for agenda review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.